Well, hello there, Heather. How are you today?
Oh, I am doing great. I think that I'm really excited about our recording our word that we're going to introduce in a minute here because it's a word that I definitely need to unpack with someone else, not just in my own crazy brain, but out loud. So,
Yeah, life can get pretty complicated, can it?
yeah. So, this is
We,
definitely needed for me.
me too. I mean, a lot of things can be thrown at us, and we can also throw a lot of stuff on ourselves.
Hmm.
Sometimes we want to carry so many things, and we feel like we have to figure everything out. And sometimes we think, man, the more complex we make it, man, the smarter we are, or
Hmm.
the more we see all the angles and we see you know, it could be this, it could be that, and try to plan for every potential option. And when I do that, which I can get wrapped up often,
Hmm.
I tend to just freeze often. I tend to say, oh my gosh, I really made somehow this got complicated. How did that happen? And life happens, life can get messy. We talk a lot about living through the mess,
Hmm.
and life can get pretty complex. But in my life over the last few weeks, I've really tried to focus on reducing the complexity and stepping back and really trying to simplify. And I think
Hmm.
that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about ways that we maybe can simplify things in our life.
Hmm.
Maybe that brings things into focus for us. And
Yeah.
at the end of most of our episodes, I write the word and I share it vertically. But why don't we start with that this time and then see just where the conversation takes us? Because I think hopefully it will trigger some conversation around what can we do? What steps can we take to simplify?
Absolutely. Yeah. Please
So,
share.
back to the basics: character, values, and faith, which is one of the chapters in Above the Chatter, Our Words Matter. I wrote the word simplify. So, to achieve more of what you want, think simplify. So we write the word vertically, right? And we just use the letters to come up with either a phrase or a word that helps define what that means. So here we go. The S in simplify: seek what matters to you. We can't be all things to all people ever. And so what really matters to us, and we talk a lot about that being our faith and being on our intended path. So seek what really matters to you is the S. Invest yourself in what matters.
Mhm.
So that means taking the time to pour into yourself in those areas and maybe reduce or diminish or maybe eliminate some things that might not be uh, serving you and might be making things more complex. The M is minimize distractions. And that could be really as simple as working from a clean desk, right?
Mm.
I mean, that could be clutter in the car. That could be a calendar that has enough time to move from one commitment to the next that's not blocked.
Mm.
As an example, P, place your faith in God. The more that we talk, the more that we spend time together, the more I like to share how important that is to me, because without that, without faith in God, without letting go and living the life that He's intended to me, things can get really complex in my mind and in my world. The L is let your gifts guide you. We all have them, and I speak about that a lot. Had the right gifts, God installed features to share is the acrostic for gifts, and we all have them, and often we diminish them, but they're usually the thing we're best at. They're usually the things that come more smoothly. They come with less challenge often to just be able to use them and put them in place. The I then in simplify is insist on loving what you do.
Mm.
I think that's got to be foremost. You've got to find something in what you're doing that you love, even though it may not be the exact circumstance or situation. Find
Mhm.
something that you get fired up about it. The F then is find a little fun in each day. I mean, we shouldn't be doing something if we can't laugh and have a little chuckle, or have some sort of fun and celebration in it. And then the Y is you will be the best you can be. I think if we simplify, those are just some steps that I
Mhm.
try.
Well, I love all of those. I should have wrote them. I should have written them down so that I could go back to them and kind of reflect on each of those. When I was thinking through this word, when we talked about what we might do today, I started kind of just pondering it. And one of of course, I like to look up definitions and where the word came from. And I found it interesting that the word simplify or simple, not just simplify, but keeping things simple. Actually, that whole slogan of keep it simple, stupid, they say that KISS came from the in the 60s, the in the Navy, they would say that to each other, especially when they said, sometimes you're going to go into combat and you're going to need to repair a plane or something, and all you're going to have is a screwdriver. You need to figure out how to fix your whole plane with a screwdriver. Like sometimes all you have is the simplest thing, and you need to learn how to operate with the very basics. Keep it simple. That when hard doesn't do it, simple, easy often does.
Yeah.
And we, like what you said, we tend to overcomplicate so much of our lives because they're busy. There's a lot of moving parts, but we need to keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah. There's a difference between simple and easy. It is not easy to keep things simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. As you as a writer, I can just share my experience, and that is that most of my editing and writing is taking things away. Like, get that prepositional phrase out of that sentence. You really don't need it. What things do you have to say, and what things can you not have to write? It's making it simple. Musicians the same way. I'm a kind of a jazz fan, and some of my favorite musicians that play that style of music actually don't play a lot of notes. You think of jazz as sometimes this really crazy, confusing sort of thing, but the most lyrical are the ones that attract me, the ones that can kind of say things not just with the notes, but by the space they leave as well. So, how would you say, let's say you've got a dad out there that's traveling all over the place with work, and he's trying to make the ball games, he's trying to make the concerts, he's trying to make the dinners, that sort of thing. I mean, what sort of things do you think are things to think about as it relates to kind of simplifying to let things kind of be able to hit those things that are important to you?
Gosh, that's a hard question, Bruce. You're the dad. You should answer it, really. But I will tell you, I think it's just learning what to say yes to and what to say no to, for one thing. Not doing so much because other people expect you to do it, because you want to show off your kids and how well they play baseball, or you don't want to be the one to say, we're not going to play baseball on Sundays because we go to church, or whatever it is. I think you can kind of eliminate some of the static and the extra stuff if you really evaluate why you're doing the extra stuff.
We do over program ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We just kind of get into that, wrapped up in the lacrosse practice, to the piano lessons, to the ice skating, to the school work, to dinner in the backseat of the car. I mean, that's kind of been what life. So the S then was seek what matters to you. Maybe you pick, not everything. And
that's the key. Don't do everything. And I tend to be, my husband always teases me. He's like, just because it might just be an opportunity. That doesn't mean you have to take it just because it's an option for you. I'm the kind of person where they say, someone were to say, Heather, do you want to go? I would say yes. And then ask where it was. I want to go. I want to do more. I want to have more fun. I want to go to more parties, and I want to be busy and doing fun stuff. But then by the end of all that, I'm not doing, and my soul gets a little wonky, a little out of whack when I'm going 100 miles an hour and I don't have time to pause, pray, and proceed on anything, because I'm, barely making my next appointment, or I'm 2 or 3 minutes late for everything I do all day long. Yeah. That is not a simplified way to live, for sure.
Yeah, someone said to me once, I've read it as well since then, and that is, the word no is actually a complete sentence.
Mm-hmm.
There doesn't have to be an excuse. There doesn't have to be explanation. There doesn't have to be a reason.
Yeah.
So, seek what matters to you, and that doesn't. And, what matters means the things that are your values, taking care of the things that are important to you, whether, family, fitness, faith, finances, whatever those things are in your life, your social, um, it's a balance, it's a rhythm, it's a tempo, back to the music analogy, that just has to be, you have to be okay with it. And
Mhm.
I think when we get out of, and some folks are able to do all things, they just seem to be able to fit more in, and it's their personality, and that's sort of how it works. But I know I'm not that way. And I know that when I get over my skis and doing too many things, or saying yes to too many, I know that I need to step back and simplify, whether that's sit in the garden for 20 minutes and just, exhale, or, just find a moment,
Mhm. And it's not always, most of the time, it's not that we're doing anything wrong or bad. It's just maybe it's just too much.
Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunities out there for us to, um, you know, maybe do another podcast or write a book or what, those are for people like you and I who are doing that kind of thing. There are opportunities galore, but you can't say yes to everything and still keep, like we said, keep the main thing the main thing. So for me, if I'm not pausing a little for a minute and praying about it before I proceed with the next thing, I get overscheduled. And then the things that normally are fun for me they're not fun anymore. They're
Yeah.
stressful.
I also find that there's times that when we're in something that really matters to us, if we're overbooked or overcommitted, we can't totally commit to that moment.
Mm.
Whether it is a ball game, or it is, going to, kids kindergarten for dad's day, or, whatever that is, if your body's there, but your mind's, oh my gosh, I've only got 3 more minutes, or I've got to get going on something else, or that phone call's backing up to this. Can we really be present? And maybe a way to help simplify is to, what you say yes to, you are all in while you're in it.
Mhm.
You can't prepare for the next when you're right in the middle of something that really matters to you. So why try? Or you're going to diminish the pleasure or the value, or, whether it's contributing or if it's receiving in that situation,
Mhm.
if your mind is somewhere else. And, maybe that's one way to simplify, is to just stay focused in that space for that time that you've blocked.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a good topic while I'm also sitting here in a room in my house that I have set aside just for doing podcasts. But as I look around the room, I won't show the rest of you what it looks like, but there's a whole wall full of Star Wars things over there, and Lego things over there, and books over here, and boxes of my books over there. And to me, like, my brain is saying, you need to simplify all the stuff too.
Yeah.
Getting rid of things that you don't need, or just, like you mentioned earlier too, when your car is this is a good indicator for me. When my car, it looks like I live in my car. I was going to write a blog the other day about, you've heard of the Lincoln Lawyer. I'm like the Veloster blogger, because it looks like I live in my car. I've got everything you might need is in my car at all times. So simplifying my life usually means my car doesn't look like I live in it.
Okay. So you can also know, what does that mean when you are in a simplified space?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's I don't know, maybe the dishes are done. Maybe there's not a huge stack of laundry. I'm just thinking like tasks that, like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm overflowing, and just, let's say, in a neat freak, but having the things the way that you like them
Right.
minimizes distractions. It minimizes, oh no, there's a priority that I need to put ahead of another. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not easy, but
Mm-hmm.
simplifying simplifying is I think an important step to getting clarity on goals, getting clarity on what really matters, getting clarity on purpose. Because because I do think, this is just Bruce, I do think life is best lived when it does have simple aspects to it. Yes, we have commitments. Yes, we have obligations, but overwhelming ourselves sometimes can just create that thought of how complex things are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is kind of a really big topic that we could probably talk for a long time about, because as you're talking, I'm also thinking about just that often when we have struggles or problems or circumstances that we don't really know what to do with, that often we overthink it, we overanalyze it, we, like you said, we try to figure it out, which I always say that's like my new F word is figure it out. If I'm just trying to just figure things out all the time, then I'm not letting God into that. I'm just working my own will, my own plan, trying to figure it all out. And I think when you can simplify and knowing that God has that plan, and that you need to lean, that at least for me, I need to lean into that and look for his answers. And that's usually um, there's some pretty good indicators of how I can find out if I'm kind of on the right track. And
Yeah.
I can slow it down and listen.
Yeah, that, and it's difficult, especially for us guys, right? We want to be in control. We want to know what step B, step C, and step D are while we're on step one. We want to, because we don't want things that aren't known. The unknown is scary to us, right? It doesn't create the structure we're looking for. It doesn't create the control. We talked about that word a long time ago in
Yeah.
our first episodes, but um, if we can step back and really, in the relationship that I personally am developing in my life with God, I'm learning that He has basically spent my entire life preparing me for things that I might not know are ahead of me. As long as I'm allowing Him to take me to those places, He always gives me the resource, usually that I have already experienced or I can pull from, that can help me work through the situation at that time and not come with a full set of plans and say, this
Yeah.
is exactly what we're going to do to solve.
Can you please endorse my plan for my life?
Yeah.
And that's when things get, I think, for me anyway, very excessively complicated.
Yeah.
And I question and I doubt. But when I can relax a little bit and simplify, figure out, not, oh, see, don't want to figure it all out. But if I can just remind myself what I know to be true about how God operates, um, and trust Him, then it's not as overwhelming and not as scary.
Yeah. And that's a growth step for me. I've had to go through that recently with just looking at some professional opportunities that have been in front of me.
Mhm.
And it's, wow, I better make the right decision, Bruce, right? Don't mess it up.
Yeah.
As opposed to what I've really tried to do here is to be grateful for every opportunity, be thankful for every opportunity, and then just work through being me, being try to be faithful and prayerful. And the doors that aren't going to open don't, and those that do, you walk through. And through simplification, getting out of my own way is probably the best way that I can simplify my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Wow, we could go on forever, but let's wrap up simplify, and just it's just a great concept to just step back and maybe take one thing out of your day that might not be as important as something else, and see if you can park it for a while. And what happens if you don't pay attention to it for 2 or 3 days? Has the world stopped? Has something catastrophic occurred? If not, probably was something that you could taken out of that complicated mindset.
Hmm. Yep, and just keep it simple. It's a great slogan to just keep that in your head too, because it just brings you back to the simple way of approaching life and not overcomplicating it, overthinking it.
I agree. And it's fun to have a word with you. We love this podcast. Can I have a word with you? And thanks for doing this again with me. We hope that the audience is getting something out of this conversation. And we do this every week. They launch on Tuesday mornings, bright and early, and we're committed to just unpacking some words and sharing some thoughts. And we Heather, I appreciate you on this journey with me and being willing to let me unpack some of this stuff from my head.
Back at you, Bruce.
All right.
Talk to you next time.
We'll talk next time. Have a great day. See you.